2. Hello, how are you today? Good? Okay, so my name is Daniela Baquero. I'm a student at the University of the District of Columbia, and today, with the help of two good friends, we'll try to elaborate more on quitting the stereotypes about Anacostia, a call for change. And first of all, let me thank you both for being here and taking the time today and preparing yourself with some research, I know, and the questions that we're going to be answered today. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to start with some quick introductions. So just say your name, what do you do, or what you used to do, things like that are going to be helpful for the audience to understand. And yeah, let me start with my right, Darlene.
Yes, my name is Darlene Pelletier. I am currently retired and I am a retired service member. I worked as a contractor for the Department of Defense afterwards and enjoying my time off, volunteering a lot within my church and other volunteer activities.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. My name is Jocelyn Medrano. I go to the same church. I am a nurse and a student midwife, and time I have available, I'll mostly spend it at church doing stuff with friends.
Okay, nice. Well, I'd like to start with a brief introduction also about ourselves as a group. So back in November, we went on a mission trip to Anacostia, which is the main topic of today. And we volunteer with different organizations to try to make an impactful outcome for kids and folks in the community. Places like Anacostia River Church and Cornerstone School were the purpose of our trip. And that's why today, with the help of you two, we're just going to answer some questions. We previously read the policy. That's probably my best guess. If we did read the policy about that. I did a paper on this, which is called Quitting the Stereotypes about Anacostia. And the main goal of this paper is to lead people to understand the struggles that are not a mystery for people. We all know the issues that are going around the community of Anacostia, and the idea is we can probably elaborate more on that and give our point of view and what we think it can be done in order to do better. We all know, again, what's probably happening there and what needs to be done. And I'll share some of it with the audience today, and then we can dive into our conversation. And this is, again, conversation wise project, so it's gonna be fun. You ready?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. So let me ask you the first question. And what comes to mind when you hear Anacostia, the word Anacostia?
Well, it's obviously a small community located, I'd say, about southeast of Washington, D.C., or within Washington, D.C. area. It's unfortunately, it's a very high crime area. And unfortunately as well, a lot of the students, high school students, only 50% graduate. It has a lot of issues, but it also has a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping for Anacostia.
Yeah. What about you, Jocelyn?
Yeah.
What comes to mind?
First thing that comes to mind is poor infrastructure, just not very well established parks, but also a growing community. I think being there and having lived in this area for my whole life, I've seen improvement in the infrastructure slowly. People attempting.
Slowly, but surely.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you both. Because for me, also the first thing that comes to mind is insecurity, underserved people. There's also this thing that we also, when we were there, it is the food deserts. Food deserts. Like they don't have business markets investing there, and that also creates more issues. People need food, right? We all need food, and that's a big issue also in Anacostia. The second question is related to what we just probably said. Do you consider the community of Anacostia to be underserved, and why?
Well, they have a lot of schools. Unfortunately, the education system, I think, could probably be improved. I would love to see technical opportunities, to technical training, so that people can obtain jobs. I know Anacostia River is polluted, for example, that perhaps by training people in terms of how to clean the water and clean up the community, do these kinds of things, it would open job opportunities for people living in that community, since a lot of people are unemployed, and also give people job skills so that they don't have to resort to crime or these other things, other problems that are occurring in the Anacostia area. I think there's, like I said before, I think there's a lot of hope and opportunities that could exist.
There is, yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
The community to be underserved.
definitely think it's underserved. It almost seems like they're in a cycle. I mean, you mentioned the giant that was open there, and then it was closed down because of crime. So it's like there's this cycle of opportunities that people are trying out, and then because there's a cycle of crime and poverty, it's not able to succeed. So people are stuck there, definitely underserved.
Right, and what about the income inequality? What happens in Anacostia? If I know you did some research on unemployment rates, but also kids, like 50%. What is the percentage we have there?
Well, 50% of the students don't graduate from high school.
Students don't graduate from high school.
And it's an extreme, mostly the crime consists of drug use and gangs. And if the community had more opportunities for maybe drug counseling and opportunities for the people there living there to get into positive activities where they can hang out together, encourage one another, and not resort to the crime. In other words, instead of gangs getting their good feelings from one another in terms of doing these things, we can turn that around and create a community of well-respected individuals that actually help and do wonderful things to help one another, help other people that are in need, and get their good feelings from that.
Yeah, because something that I wrote on the paper is like when society repeatedly treats a community as poor, dangerous, or hopeless, it inevitably fulfills a prophecy that eventually children are going to do. And my goal with this is quitting stereotypes about a crime. I understand there's crime, and absolutely there's crime, but there's also crime in other parts of Washington, D.C.
Yes,
it's not only Anacostia. So it's like, why not to think about other places that are also dangerous, but sometimes Anacostia is on the top list. So let's move on to the other question, then we can elaborate more on that here. So the other question is, when we went to this trip back in November, we volunteered for Cornerstone School. And that's a school that's at school in Anacostia. It was beautiful, honestly. I think it was such an amazing experience. But what about you? How do you feel when volunteering for that school?
Well, I think that, first of all, I'm very impressed with Cornerstone. I'm just amazed at the amount of people, first of all, that are graduating and also encouraged to continue with their education following graduation. They go to great lengths to make sure, excuse me, that they pass their exams and that they're prepared for college life. I also like that they work with families as well as the kids, and the kids are given classes that help them to excel and also morals and values are very important as well. So, very impressed with the school.
Okay, yeah, thank you, darling.
Yeah.
And Jocelyn, yeah, how do you feel when?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first word that came to mind was hope, because there were a good amount of students that did come back to serve, or there were some students that we saw that came back to either teach or work with the students somehow, being a mentor. So clearly these students are seeing such a positive environment that they're wanting to come back and pour into, and having the younger kids look up to these older students that have gone out, have become educated, have been able to graduate, and then come back because they want to pour into them this week. But
Exactly, exactly. That's wonderful. And then, what do you think? Like, in which ways your view of Anacostia has been affected by stereotypes? Sometimes we don't actually see it, but we hear it a bunch of times. That eventually, a lie that is being told so many times becomes a truth, right? But we sometimes don't know what is a lie, but we repeatedly says it to our minds that eventually it's a truth. So, what do you think is a stereotype of Anacostia? Probably it's been affected your points of view.
Well, there are some positive aspects of Anacostia, to include that Cornerstone Church, school as one of them. And that's the kind of stuff that you don't hear about. I think that's very common in our society, is that people focus on the negative and completely negate the positive. We see that a lot in the media. And so I think Anacostia could be improved significantly from where it is now, but it's not hopeless either. I think there's a lot of opportunities for turning these stereotypes around if we focus on positive areas and aspects of Anacostia, like the school, for example, and a museum.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Smithsonian museum as well. They have a few other things. They have a small community in there. So I saw some really nice areas and nice things that could really turn that ugliness around as far as what goes on in people's minds.
Right. Yeah. We also visited that museum. I remember
Yes.
now. It's the newest Smithsonian Museum in Washington D.C. And probably people don't know that. They just know the bad things. That would be cool to spread the good news. Yeah. What about you, Jocelyn?
definitely. I think the biggest stereotype is the I had it in my head, but it left. Hold on just a
Not
second.
take your time.
But yeah, definitely that that things are hopeless, that they're stuck in this cycle and they can never leave. I think in general that they're stuck. It's poor, it's poverty, and obviously racial discrimination. And
Yeah.
I think from us coming from an outside, like Northern Virginia perspective, and then coming into the community, it's easy to automatically like, oh wait, we cannot be involved. We don't understand. And we don't completely understand. But then seeing that like we're all people, I don't know, getting past that racial aspect, and not being so fixated on that. Although that's definitely like a point to think about and be acknowledged.
Right, because in the other hand, we know that when a child grows up seeing their neighborhood described as vibrant, rich in culture, and full of promise, will walk through the world differently than those who don't. Like we saw previously, children understanding their neighborhood as dangerous, and crime and unemployment rates very high, things like that. But if they grew up understanding the opposite, they will defend what is theirs and will eventually grow as adults who plant seeds of hope for future generations to come. And they might think they want to be doctors when they grow up. And then the rates of drop out high school will go down. They want to become, let's say, whatever is out there for them. They could be doctors, they could be accountants, they could be. There's not just crime for them. That's not the goal. That's not the goal for them to be dangerous people. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So, what do you think of implementing in early childhood education, probably a curriculum or something that focuses on kids understanding their background, but not the negative side, but the positive side of it? That makes sense. What do you think of that? What would you add to it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think in terms of schools, we need more technical skills that are offered to teach them. For example, automotive. There's so much out there, plumbing, electric skills that they can utilize if they don't plan to continue on to college. Obviously, making sure that they have grants, financial aid assistance if they do want to go to college, because we both know that we all know that it's not cheap.
Yeah, I do.
And then, of course, definitely encouragement to take the SATs and get training in terms of how to take these tests before they take them, so that they will be eligible to get accepted to these colleges and universities. Mm-hmm. In other words, instead of looking at the negative side of the community, look at the potential of the individual, and not stereotype everybody within the school, but work with individuals in terms of their interests, their skills, their potential, their reading abilities, and all the stuff, to include special needs children. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a great need for spending time with these kids, and maybe that's part of the problem, is that they don't get enough attention at home, or they get negative attention, and that's why they turn to their peers and do things that they shouldn't be doing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think there's a lot of things that can be done within the schools to take and lift the bottom, so to speak, as far as helping these kids.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for adding those useful examples and ideas that we can implement it for them, for that community. And what about you, Jocelyn?
Yeah, I definitely think, like you were saying, focusing on positive aspects of the community, that your community is something that you can be proud of, that you're not ashamed, and just listening to the stereotypes that other communities, I think that can be damaging. Can you imagine leaving your community and all you hear about your community are these negative other crime, but having that pride in your community, that there is a vibrant culture, that there is a lot of history, a lot of change has happened, a lot of improvement, a lot of freedom, and I think that can be big, and especially in the young people. I think I think everybody wants to start with the young people, because that's the point where you either go this direction or that
direction. That's when they're learning. That's when they are being influenced the most, when they're very young. So we are creating good and strong adults, or we are doing the opposite.
And I think to improve the community, we have to elicit buy-in from the community members. So if we take these children and they become successful, I like what you said earlier about Cornerstone, that they come back and serve as role models for others, so that they can see that, you can either continue to spiral downward, or you can continue to mobilize upward and be successful, that it is possible to be successful, and these mentors can help them do that.
Yeah, wow, yeah. Thank you so much for your useful information, everything you were able to share during these few minutes of podcast. We can start to wrap up. We can conclude this by saying something you think it's gonna make an impactful outcome for Anacostia. It doesn't have to be long. It could be just a few words. Something real quick that comes to mind, because my first question was, what comes to mind when you hear the word Anacostia? Now my last question is going to be an impactful outcome we can do to improve Anacostia.
Well, I think in terms of the community, support has to come not only from within, people taking responsibility, but it also has to come from without, the surrounding communities, in terms of supporting one another. And this way, by doing that, they're leveraging their resources and sharing ideas and creating a positive impact across the DC area. Because I'm sure that some communities have resources that others don't.
Mm-hmm.
And by helping one another out, everybody becomes a winner.
Awesome. I like that. Thank you.
That's so
Just-
true. Yeah, I like what you said because it's like, yeah, we would take pride in Anacostia as a community, but then as a greater community of the DMV, we want to see Anacostia thrive too.
Right.
So how can we all support our
Or people.
fellow
Brother.
fellow DMV members?
Exactly. And try to close the gap of inequality.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you again for your time and your words and everything you did. And that will be it for today. You want to say goodbye to the camera?
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.